Okay, Discord's working. Okay, Discord's working.
Hold on. Sorry about the echo. Sorry, I just realized I left your stream on. Hey, how's it going, dude?
Oh, it's going pretty good. Yeah, so I haven't really I haven't looked into the shit going on in Sri Lanka any more than what you've told me about it, and the thing we were talking about a little while ago where the Democracy Now people were talking about how they were saying we have 1 day's worth of gasoline left, and even then it turned out it was old news, and they just, when did they officially run out of gasoline?
It was supposed to be I think yesterday. I think yesterday was their last day of gas. I think.
Jesus
it was either
Christ.
yesterday or today. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, hi chat, how's it going? So, for those of you who don't know why the hell I'm on here, why would Beer Bash Johnson just bring a random ass person? So basically, I'm a streamer myself.
And a based one at that.
Oh, what?
And a based one at that.
Oh, thank you. So basically, my thing is that I cover South Asian politics. So I usually talk about Indian politics. For the past several months, I've been talking almost exclusively about Indian politics. But basically, ever since this whole thing in Sri Lanka started happening, I've been almost exclusively covering what's been happening in Sri Lanka. And so Sri Lanka is basically, first of all, it's an island nation off the coast of India. And so there's a decent amount of cultural similarity with India, but there's enough of a cultural difference that we can get into. But basically,
Sinhala people don't really live on the Indian mainland at all, do they?
No, they don't. I mean, there are some Sinhala people in like Karnataka, but they're migrants basically.
Yeah. Of course, there's definitely a diaspora politician all over the place, but yeah, they have.
But Sinhala, but the Sinhalese originally came from whoever this person is. I appreciate the preface of who they are. Thank you, I appreciate it. So basically, what's been happening in Sri Lanka for the past month and a half is basically people have been unable to afford basic goods. And so basically what's been happening is runaway inflation. And it's gotten so bad. It's gotten super bad to the point where schools are shutting down because there's not enough electricity to basically do print exams. So schools are shutting down. They just ran out of gas. They ran out of petrol. They basically are struggling to keep up with. They're struggling to buy food because a couple of things. So Sri Lanka is basically a largely import-based economy. So basically, for almost all of its major essential goods, except for rice for a very long time, but we'll get to that in a second, Sri Lanka relied on basically importing goods from India, China, the West, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Right. So that's one issue. And it also relied on a lot of remittances from abroad. So a lot of immigrants that would send their money back to Sri Lanka.
I can imagine the Civil War only worsened that too.
So I'll get to how the Civil War is tied to this in a second, but the Sri Lankan Civil War is partially why this happened in the first place. Right?
Yeah.
It's partially why it happened. It's actually mostly why it happened in the first place. So basically, so we'll get to the service level reasons. So we'll it's like an onion. We'll peel things back one by one. So that's apocalyptic levels of resource shortage. Yeah, it is. Thanks for the news update, Arun. Oh, we're going balls deep into this.
Oh yeah.
Uh, yeah. We're going balls deep into this. It's not just an update. So basically, what's been happening in Sri Lanka is that so for like 2.5 years, basically, to Sri Lanka also relies on a shit ton of tourism, right? So
Yeah.
it's reliant on buying things from abroad, from foreign governments, and then in addition to that, it is also largely reliant on basically tourism, basically, right? So it's relying on a lot of tourism, which has basically been severed completely since the 2019 Easter bombings, right? So when the Easter bombings
Oh,
happened in Sri
since even
Lanka,
before COVID.
yeah, it's before
Oh,
COVID,
I didn't.
right?
Yeah, I remember those Easter bombings happening. I didn't know that they that they had completely like cut off tourism because of it.
It
Or
didn't completely cut it off, but it drastically reduced tourism, and then
yeah.
COVID murdered it completely, right?
Yep.
So basically, because there's no tourism, there's no money coming into the country at all,
Yeah.
right? So that's the surface level reason. But the reason that it's like this is largely because the former prime minister that just left, whose house was burnt down, uh,
Wow.
yeah, the protesters like okay, to give you an idea of how dire the situation is, the people of Sri Lanka literally burned down the former prime minister's like home, not like in Colombo,
Yeah.
but they burned it down in like his hometown, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The guy, the prime minister who just got forced out and replaced, he was the brother of the president, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, right?
Gotabaya Rajapaksa, yes. So Mahinda Rajapaksa, not okay. He was prime minister. He was president during the Civil War, and he was the former finance minister. So this dude's been in politics for basically 20 years.
Yeah, in like really high level positions too.
And Gotabaya Rajapaksa, we'll get to why this dude is an asshole in a second, was the defense minister during the Civil War. So basically, he's the head of the army. So
I take it
and
he was a big architect behind the really horrific things that the
yeah,
he was one of the architects behind the really horrific crimes against the humanity the Sri Lankan army committed against Tamils
yeah,
in their attempt to crush the Tamil Tigers.
we'll get to him in a second. But
Yeah.
basically, what happened was the former prime minister Mahinda Rajapaksa made some very unsound financial decisions. So what he did was he borrowed a shit ton of money from China, essentially, and not just China, but he borrowed from foreign equity like firms, basically. But he also borrowed sovereign bonds from other countries
Yeah.
as well. And basically, what happened was he totally misused it. He basically spent it on like useless infrastructure projects. So the classic example is the Rajapaksa International Airport in the southern part of the country. It is literally the world's most empty. It is the world's emptiest airport, right? He spent like I think about $1 billion on that airport. He spent a lot of money on that, right?
And like nobody uses it.
It was so empty they had to convert it into a rice silo. They had to convert it into like a place where you store rice. That's
What
how
the
empty.
fuck?
Yeah.
And did that
So
get done like before COVID would make airports even more empty?
yeah,
I'm guessing.
yeah.
How long ago was that?
So he built it shortly after the Civil War. He basically built
Oh,
it as
so like 10 like well over 10 years ago then.
he built it in like 2014, I think.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
damn
So
near 10 years ago.
he basically built it as like basically as a way of showing like, hey, we won the Civil War, that's so on and so forth, right?
Oh, that's so fucking horrid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really gross. So but that's like the classic example. He also built like a Lotus Tower in the capital city, Colombo, and it's never been used. It has never been used.
Just
In
sitting there.
It's just sitting there. It has not once been used. Like that's another example of like wasteful expenditures.
Yeah.
And on top of that, so he also slashed taxes just across. Well, not him. His brother slashed taxes across the board because him and his brother slashed taxes across the board. So Mahinda and Gotabaya Rajapaksa all slashed taxes across the
Yeah.
board, and Sri Lanka already didn't have like a decent enough revenue from income taxes to begin with, right? Spending for the sake of opulence, exactly.
Yep.
It's literally just for tourism purposes, right? It's like
Yeah.
the kind of shit you see in like Turkmenistan or like
Yeah.
North
I
Korea.
was thinking of I was thinking when you were talking about this stuff, like, yeah, it sounds like just a bunch of like extremely like grandiose sucking your own dick projects,
It is
and
literally
passing it off as like infrastructure that is supposedly for public benefit, but doesn't actually do that.
on top of that, basically the one of the few things that Sri Lanka had basically self-sufficient over, which was rice production, right? So they were actually 100% self-sufficient. But what ended up happening was uh the president Gotabaya Rajapaksa, he basically overnight said you're not allowed to use chemical fertilizer and you have to use organic fertilizer overnight, basically. And that basically destroyed the farmer's ability to
Oh,
to produce rice. And it got so bad that Sri Lanka, which was once a completely self-sufficient nation when it comes to rice, had to start importing rice from India. Like
that's
it,
bad.
yeah. So he fucking destroyed. Um, they both fucking destroyed the rice self sufficiency in Sri Lanka as well, right? That's
Yeah.
so that's another thing that they did among several other things that they did. Like basically after the Civil War, once these two bastards won, they just like ran amok in the country. They just caused absolute chaos in the country. Um, so like a lot of the
Unfortunately,
things
like a big fucking war victory that can be passed off as some big patriotic moment for national history often leads to such exploitation.
Sri Lanka sounds like a shithole now. Okay, well, don't say that, obviously, because obviously I don't want the connotation of like brown people in shithole. Like I don't want that, right?
Yeah, we don't like that connotation.
Right. Self sufficiency is fucking poggers, and he still screwed it up. Yeah, like almost everything else Sri Lanka has like no manufacturing like that is sufficient enough, right? Like this is probably like their best industry so far, like basically rice agriculture, right?
Yeah.
But this is basically what happened. I'm talking about the leadership. Yeah. Like the leadership are monsters. They're war criminals and they're genocide perpetrators, basically. Um, so uh
Yeah,
so
they've all
basically
gotten away with it too, because clearly
they they
because they
got away.
hold.
That's the really fucked up part. They're not being tried for their war crimes at all.
Yeah.
They left. I mean, Gotabaya Rajapaksa is still in power. Um,
Yeah, like I knew some horrible shit happened there, but I didn't know how like actually fucking horrid it was until you were like telling me about like what happened to Isai Priya and shit.
Issei Priya is actually lucky. So, here's what I mean by that. Here's how fucked up the situation is. Issei Priya was the lucky one because she was actually famous. She was actually a famous singer before she got
Oh, I
fucking.
forgot about that. Yeah.
Are they trying to have a Sri Lankan Holodomor? No, but they had a Sri Lankan Holocaust, or they're trying to do a Sri Lankan Holocaust or a Sri Lankan Tamil Holocaust. Yeah,
At
they're trying to
least
do that.
another one. They've already kind
No,
of
it's
tried to do
always been
that before.
ongoing.
Yeah. What's
No,
that?
no, no. No, they've no like ever since the 1950s, they've always been doing like genocide.
Yeah,
Like
it's never stopped.
it's never really stopped. Um, so basically, actually, do you mind if I invite someone to this?
Oh yeah, yeah. I forgot to bring up. Yeah, you were saying something about some other cool streamer. Yeah,
Yeah,
go
his
ahead and
guy. The name is let me do this. Let me grab the link to the Discord. Then I'll tell him to join this in a second. Just give me a
yeah,
second.
sure thing. What's the dude's name?
His name is Nabil 225.
Gotcha.
Go give him a follow. Uh, copy link. There you go. Okay. So basically, I'm so ignorant of their history. I feel bad. No, it's not your fault, dude. It's because every government has colluded to make sure that all this, like the genocide, has been swept under the rug. Basically, um, that's basically why. So the long story short is that so well, okay. So basically, let's get back to why this conflict is occurring. Right, this is happening because of the really bad financial decisions that the Rajapaksa family have made, and they've made horrific economic decisions like wasteful expenditures, slashing taxes. Um, and the other thing that doesn't ever get talked about is because of the war. If you look at like the average income per city, right, the ones in the north and the east, right, like Kilinochi and Manad and Jaffna,
Yeah.
right, which are predominantly Tamil,
Yeah.
they have a lower income than Colombo and Kandy, which are Sinhala dominated, right?
Yeah.
So that's another thing that doesn't ever get talked about, man. That never gets talked about, right? So they've made some horrific economic decisions like to date,
Oh
right?
yeah. Yeah, like
Now,
Sri
the
Lanka
thing,
never gets talked about in like Western political discourse at all. Like when I was a
okay,
kid, I was
because
like only really aware that a civil war was happening there because my dad kept paid some semblance of attention to international politics.
yeah. So here's the thing, right? The new guy, Ranil Wickremesinghe, he's really not that much better, right? Ranil Wickremesinghe. So if Rajapaksa is Trump, right, Ranil Wickremesinghe is Obama. That's probably the best comparison that I can draw, basically.
Yeah. And before a bunch of liberals being like, but that's great.
No, no, Wickremesinghe. Also, the thing is, Wickremesinghe's party. The thing is, that sounds intentional to destroy the counter. Oh no,
Oh, the
the
country?
the, the country. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So Vic, no, no, no. It's just like the Rajapaksa family never really gave a shit about anyone but themselves, but they're also like fucking monstrous fascists. Like they
Yeah.
just do not like Tamil people, right? Because the thing with Vikramasinghe is like he at least spoke to the idea of Sri Lanka being a home for Tamils, and all of his speeches would be like both in would be in Sinhalese, English, and Tamil, right?
Yeah.
So Tamil and Sinhalese are the two main languages spoken on the island, right?
Yep.
But Rajapaksa never made an attempt to speak Tamil. Like his Tamil is garbage, right? And he never like he made it a point to be like, no, this is a Sinhalese country, right?
Yeah.
Speak Sinhalese, right? Oh, Nabil's in the waiting room right now.
Oh, sweet. Let's drag him in here.
Hey, Nabil, what's up?
Hello, Nabil. You are live, and just in case it's preventing you from unmuting, I gave you the fellow of the Grand Chungus role, and so you should definitely be able to speak in here once you are unmuted.
Suppressed. Still suppressed. Yeah, it's an actual genocide. Yeah. Uh, okay. Yeah. That's. Hold on a sec. Let me see. I'm gonna tell him that. Hey, Nabil, try and like go back and come back. Give me a second. Okay. Um. Yeah, he's back in the waiting room. Try and drag him again.
Hello,
Hey, Nabil.
Nabil.
We can't hear you, Nabil.
Yeah, it doesn't show the mutant icon next to your name anymore, but we cannot hear you if you're trying to talk to us.
Go into your settings and just double check and make sure that your mic is also being used for Discord as well. But in the meantime, so let's continue with our conversation, and
Yeah.
then hopefully someone in his like stream will like help him like troubleshoot. Um, so basically, what we were talking about earlier. Okay, so basically, what happened? Talking about okay, so basically, what's been going on is yeah. So Rajapaksa has made some really horrific financial decisions, which led to basically the populace not being able to buy anything. Basically,
Yeah.
right? They can't buy anything, right? Now, the reason the Rajapaksas came into power in the first place, and we were talking about Vikramasinghe, the new guy. So the reason Vikramasinghe is not going to change anything, like any real, like he might lead Sri Lanka out of this situation, right?
Yeah.
If at all, but he's not going to address the fundamental flaws that got Sri Lanka into the situation in the first place. And the fundamental, like the bedrock, the rocky bedrock in which it was, um, the already like unstable bedrock that the Sri Lankan government has already been in to begin with, right? That comes from the anti-Tamil pogroms, the Tamil genocide, basically in the Civil War, right? And
Yeah.
so basically, what's been happening in Sri Lanka for a very long time is basically ethnic hatred. Well, not even ethnic hatred. It's not fair to say it's ethnic hatred. It's fascism, basically. It's
Yeah.
fascism by an oppressor. Um, so basically, the Sinhalese nationalists, who had backing from the government, did several they did several attacks on Tamil civilians for a multitude of reasons, right? And they used a lot of the excuses they used to attack Tamil civilians was already like tenuous to begin with. It was already like, oh, uh this stuff was already like it's already like a bad excuse, right? You can say that, right? Why nationalism is fucking cancer. Yep. So basically, there were four pogroms, like four major instances of pogroms, but like the thing to keep in mind is that like there were attacks on Tamil civilians even between those pogroms.
Oh
So
yeah.
just keep that in mind, right? So those are just the ones where like hundreds or thousands of people died.
Yeah, the big escalations.
Yeah, those are like the ones that got press, right?
Yep.
Um, and this has been going back to the 1950s, right? This has largely just been going back to the 1950s, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, if you go, so like, there's like the Galoya, I forgot the name of that. That was a 1956 pogrom. There's 1958, 1977, and then there was the 1983 pogrom, also known as Black July. And between those, there's an active cultural genocide. So if you want to pull it up, Beer Bash or Johnson, I don't know
Yeah.
how. Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's called.
generally
Look up,
go by
look up the
Beer
Jaffna
Bash or Beer
Library.
Bash Johnson.
Beer Bash Johnson. Look up the Jaffna Library on YouTube. It should be a video by Journeyman Pictures. And then
YouTube.com. Yep, that Journeyman Pictures one is the first thing that shows up.
yep.
The
So
library which sparked the civil war in Sri Lanka.
yeah. So there scroll like quickly go to like a frame where sounds like what Europeans did to the natives in the boarding schools. No, what happened here was just outright mask off like genocide. Like it's just like go
Yeah.
like
Like
we didn't
not
even
even like we're going to try to like brainwash and
right
beat your culture out of you. We're just going to literally murder everybody.
exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a frame there. Like there should be something more like Germany. Yeah. There weren't even camps. It's just like it just went straight to murder, basically, mass
Yeah.
murder. Um so basically if you scroll to like go to like a frame where like it's like black and white, like in the video. Like go to a frame where it's just completely black and white. Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they burned down this entire thing. So they burned down the Jaffna Library. Now I'll tell you why this is super important. Because the Jaffna Public Library had priceless artifacts, had like priceless Tamil cultural artifacts in there that will never get back. Right?
Yeah.
And this was
Jesus
done by the
Christ.
Sri Lankan police, basically. So basically, like the Sri Lankan police basically burned down this entire thing,
Yeah.
right? And I've mentioned on several occasions, like to a Tamil person, like in Tamil culture, like Tamil culture is the language. You can't separate the two,
Yeah.
right? It is you cannot separate the two. Um, and so, oh I think he left.
Oh, a few minutes ago he said, I'm still trying to speak, but for some reason it's not working. Looks like my voice roll is still limited. Huh, yeah, because you're a... Yeah, one moment. Yeah, because you're also a fellow of the Grand Chungus, and you can speak in here. And I don't think I have that role limited to push to talk either. Give me
No, I think
one
it's something
moment.
like he had this problem with me earlier, I think, but
I'm just gonna make sure the role does not
fascism always destroys history.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, that's ultimately a goal of it, is to destroy real history to create a fake one.
exactly. I mean, but like the thing is, like these are like so there's a book called the Tirukural, right? Which is like basically uh the Tirukural is like the most important book in Tamil like literature, right? Like the thing is, Tamil culture is heavily influenced by literature in the Tamil Sangam period, which is like 2000 years ago, right? The most like revered professions were poets, right? There's a deep attachment to the language. There's a deep attachment to the literature, right? And the thing is, the Sri Lankan police basically burned this shit down because they knew exactly that relationship that the Tamils had with the language, that they knew there were priceless artifacts here, and they specifically targeted this library because of the cultural history of it. They wanted to commit cultural genocide. They wanted to do this.
Yeah.
This was an intentional attack on the genocide. So basically, what happened was these guys, like, they were specific,
Real
like
quick,
they're
just dragging
only
Nabil in here to see if it'll...
Hey, can you hear me, Nabil? I don't know. It's not picking up his mic for some reason.
Yeah, I'm
We'll just let him sit. Okay. Uh, uh, go into the call for a second, Nabil. That everything, and it should work. Should have picked up my mic. Wonder what's going on. All right. Well, if you want to like sit here for a second, that'd be great, and I can just go through all this stuff.
Yeah, make sure you're not on push to talk, of course, but yeah, I was just checking the permissions at the roles, and you absolutely should be able to speak and use voice activity and not just push to talk in here. So
yeah,
the only thing that the fellows of the Grand Chungus cannot do is just join the live VC manually. They have to join waiting room and have me or one of the high druids drag you in.
check your Discord configuration, Nabil. Just make sure that your Discord mic is like picking up everything. If that's all good, then it should be good.
Yeah, there's the option test mic.
Yeah, make sure that's
I've
happening
had
as well.
Discord be weird about this shit for me too, but it usually worked when I
Picking up. Okay, so then there's something off here. Okay, well, Discord just doesn't want to work then. I'm like looking at his stream as like
gotcha.
I'm looking at
I
his.
fucking hate when Discord does this bullshit. I've had it happen when I've tried to like talk to a couple streamers before. It's like, wait, like the permissions are set up that I should be able to talk, and I'm set up that I should be able to talk, and why the fuck can't I talk?
Yeah. All
And
right.
it's
Well, sorry about that, Nabil. I
yeah,
wish we could.
real sorry about that, Nabil. I'd very much like to have you on sometime. I'm sorry these technical bullshit problems are preventing
Yeah,
us from having you on here.
I'll be talking about this tomorrow if anyone wants to try and hook up again. Yeah, beer bash. Yeah, Grim. Like his mod knows about you actually. Yeah,
Oh, cool.
yeah. His mod knows about you. Grimpy Coffee.
Yeah, that name sounds familiar. Where have I run into Grimpy Coffee? I've run
Yeah,
into Grimpy Coffee somewhere and I can't remember where now, but
yeah.
definitely know that name.
Okay, getting back to this, right? Because this is a very serious subject.
Yes, it is.
Yes. Um so basically what happened was the the Sri Lankan police burned down the Jaffna library. And it was a specific attack on the Tamil culture because there were like cultural artifacts in there like what's called ole chuvaris, which is like palm leaf manuscripts, right? It's like priceless artifacts. There was like basically artifacts of the culture that date back thousands of years that we'll never get back. And
Yeah.
basically, a lot of the Tamils there, including me to a certain extent, right? It's like my history is gone. It's just ripped away from me, right? I will never know what happened in there, right?
Yeah.
Um, so basically, they burned down this library, and then what ended up happening was Black July 2 years later. And so what happened was, so 15 Tamil Tiger soldiers attacked the Sri Lankan army, and they killed a bunch of Sri Lankan army men. They killed 15. I don't remember the numbers specifically, but they killed a bunch of Sri Lankan army men. In response to that, what ended up happening is mobs basically started killing, raping, and then killing, burning down stores, burning down homes with the help of the government. And what the government did is they actually had a bunch of voter rolls. They had a list of all the it's something called Black July. I would be very careful about showing it on stream.
Yeah.
Uh, so basically, what happened was, uh, so uh, what happened was, yeah, Black July. So this is the thing that started the Civil War,
Yeah.
right? So basically, about 3,000 people died.
Why
At
the
least
fuck is the first why the fuck is the first Google, I'm sorry to interrupt like that, but why the fuck is the first like Google result showing up oh, it's because it's a fucking ad. No, this is like
cursed.
yeah, militaryhistory.fandom.com. No, this is and I haven't looked at the what do you think? I don't like this. I'm just going to say that because I haven't looked at the fucking contents, but I don't know if I want to. And I feel like that should not be a fucking like fandom.com wiki page about some hideous fucking pogrom should not be the first thing coming up on Google when somebody searches Black July because some fucking people paid money for it.
Okay, so basically, what happened was, so basically, what happened in Black July was with the help of the government. Oh, scroll down. or like just make sure that picture's blocked out. But um,
Oh.
yeah, that's why. Stripped naked before basically being murdered. Um, so basically, what happened was Sri Lankan army was attacked by the Tamil Tigers, and then basically what happened was, in response, the Sri Lankan government backed mobs killed, raped, destroyed, burned down. They basically did a pogrom, and they basically burned down they burned down so many homes. And the thing is, we know it was backed by the Sri Lankan government because these mobs actually had voter rolls and they had addresses of Tamil houses and Tamil families. So if you go down, it'll mention it here at some point or another. But
Yeah, it
basically, what happened?
says like right here, mob attacks continued in Welawate and Dehiwala on 26th of July. There were
Yeah,
53 houses on Ratnakara Road, and the 24 houses that were lived in or owned by Tamils were burned.
right.
Like, Jesus fucking Christ. 3 houses had Sinhalese owners but were rented by Tamils. Mob removed the property from these 3 houses out to the road and burned it. The 3 houses were not burned down, neither were the 26 Sinhalese owned or occupied houses. In many
Yeah,
parts, and of course, the army, which was run by the Sinhalese dominated government, just sat there like, oh, yep, just another day in the office.
yeah. No, it's just the thing is the army backed all this. Like they
Yeah,
basically provided the addresses to these mobs of where these people lived.
yeah, like
So
what the fuck?
yeah, so this is the event that basically kicked off the Civil War, right?
Yeah.
And essentially, the Civil War was insanely brutal. Now, I'm not so basically the Civil War was fought between the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Iram or the Tamil Tigers, right?
Yeah.
Or the LTE, and it was between them and the Sri Lankan government. Now, I am not going to defend the Sri Lankan. I'm not going to defend the Tamil Tigers. I was Freudian slip. I am most certainly not going to defend the Sri Lankan government. I'm going to shit on them.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm not going to defend the Tamil Tigers either because they also did atrocious shit. So, especially towards the end of the Civil War. But basically, it was absolutely like an unequal war. The
Oh
Sri
yeah.
Lankan government, the Sri Lankan government had the backing of every government. And the thing is, the new guy, Vikramasinghe, he saw some of the war. He oversaw some of the war. And his party, the United National Party, oversaw most of the war. So, and the UNP is basically like it's the oldest party in Sri Lanka, basically.
Gotcha.
So it's like the Indian Congress Party, or you can kind of think of it as like they call it the GOP in Sri Lanka, right?
Okay.
So basically, so what ended up happening is towards the end of the Civil War, right? You basically, this is what the documentary Killing Fields is about. Rajapaksa comes to power, right? Rajapaksa gets elected president, Mahinda Rajapaksa. So the former prime minister actually gets elected as president, right? At 2005, right? He gets elected as president, right?
Yeah.
And his brother Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who is now the president, was the defense minister at the time. And basically, Mahinda Rajapaksa said, "Hey, listen, I will end the civil war at all costs. I will end this brutality, quote unquote, at all costs." Right? It was a brutal civil war, but basically, Rajapaksa is like, "Listen, vote for me, and I will do war crimes. You guys like war crimes? I'll do war crimes, baby." And the Sri Lankan people basically ate it up, right? And they're like,
Yep.
"Yeah, yeah, fuck yeah, yeah, let's," like they were basically like, "Yeah, let's kill the Tamils," right? And they elected this guy. And to be fair, a lot of them were like, "Listen, let's get it. Like, you should be tough on the Tamil Tigers, right?" And the thing is, Vikramasinghe tried to negotiate with the Tamil Tigers on multiple occasions, and he's been rebuffed, right, by the Tamil
Yeah.
Tigers. But again, here's the thing: if you had to deal with Sinhalese nationalist mobs for a decade,
for decades, and you thought the only way of achieving, and you thought the only way of like not dying was like creating a separate state, you would probably do the same thing.
Yeah.
You would probably do the same fucking thing, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
basically, the Sinhalese, the Sri Lankan voter base for the most part wanted someone that was going to be tough on the Tigers.
Yeah, and
Now, what that meant was,
regardless, in what universe does the Sri Lankan like nobody could ever convince me with an argument that just because the LTTE or any other organization in a similar situation would like rebuff negotiations, that isn't like carte blanche to just go do this, to go commit such like horrendous and
we'll get to what those war
unspeakable
crimes are in a second.
yeah, such unspeakable atrocities.
So, chat, if you want to know what kind of, first of all, I'm gonna do a bit of self promo, but in a weird way, because that's what tomorrow's stream is going to be about. It's going to be basically about the Tamil genocide, and it's going to include what happened towards the end of the Civil War.
Yeah.
We're currently, we're talking about heavy topics. Yeah, we need something like that.
Yeah, it's just a chat command I have, ! Self-care.
Yeah, exactly. Like, listen, chat, this is very heavy topic. So basically towards the end of the Civil War, Rajapaksa comes into power as president, and his defense minister, who is the current his defense minister, who is both his brother
this
and now
Mahendra Rajapaksa, right? The other brother who just got forced out of the PM's office.
Yes. So this dude was president during the Civil War.
Yeah.
Right? So he was president during the Civil War, and the current president was the defense minister during the Civil War. So a lot of the stuff that was done to the Tamils was architected by these two bastards, right?
Yeah.
So basically what happened towards the Civil War was a campaign. So one of the things that they did was they created what's called no-fire zones, right? And you can imagine what that is, right? It's basically no one is allowed to fire within these zones, right?
Yeah.
And within these zones, a lot of civilians, a lot of people that were doctors created makeshift hospitals. Now, here's the thing. They allowed them to create makeshift hospitals so that they could bomb them. So basically, this is so familiar between the killing fields and the Rwanda. Ironically enough, the name of the documentary,
I have the wiki page of it pulled up, actually, the documentary Sri Lanka's Killing Fields that Channel 4 broadcast that you've told me about.
Yep.
That's definitely going to be a really horrifying fucking watch, but I feel like that's something that's like important that people like actually know about this shit.
I know more about Rwanda, so
yeah, Rwanda was
Chomsky compared this to Rwanda.
Yeah,
believe it.
Yeah, Rwanda was another. I was possibly gonna say a little bit earlier, but I wanted to let you keep going on a bit. There's definitely parallels that could be drawn with how it just, especially how it went from like 0 to 100, and it was an example of like there don't need to be camps. It can literally just be like angry mobs of pissed off people killing their fucking neighbors and shit.
Yeah. So on top of that, here's the difference between Rwanda and Sri Lanka. The people who perpetrated the genocide stayed in power because they perpetrated the genocide. Yes. They were never held to. So if you want to know if they were ever held to account, spoiler alert, they were never held into account. So this happened in 2009, by the way, the events that I'm about to lay out.
Yeah.
So basically, the Sri Lankan army was closing in on the Tamil Tigers, right? Now, what happened is, along the way, first of all, what they did is they stole coordinates from NGOs, and they basically said, "Hey, listen, we have the locations of the hospitals. We're gonna bomb the shit out of them," and they bombed the shit out of the NGO hospitals as well. So that's one thing that they did. Another thing that they did was this no fire zone thing. So basically, they created these no fire zones where neither the Tamil Tigers nor these guys were allowed to fight. The thing is, they kept lying about the no fire zones. They wanted to basically create as many civilian populations as possible so that they could bomb the shit out of this. Right?
Yeah.
That's what they did. So they basically allowed makeshift hospitals to pop up, and like they bombed the shit out of them, and they basically bombed, like they killed a bunch of people, right?
Yeah.
In addition to that, what they also did is what they did with captured Tamil soldiers is they basically tied them up and they just executed them, right? They just shot them straight in the head. And their brain leaked on the fucking floor. And that is something that if you watch the documentary, you will see. You will see people's brains literally exploding and leaking on the ground. Like it's just point blank execution in cold blood, right? And what happened to the women, dear God, oh boy. Oh boy. You read what happened to Isaipriya, right?
Yeah.
That happened to a
The
shit
absolute
ton of people.
Yeah, the absolute most horrific the
Like,
absolute
link
just
the
like
Wikipedia article right now.
yeah.
Just link the Wikipedia article in the chat, honestly. Like that you need to read this for yourself. I don't even think Beer Bash or I are allowed to talk about like what happened to Isaipriya.
Yeah,
That's
I
how
feel like talking about like what they did to that woman is so fucked up that it might actually like violate DOS to even speak about it.
yeah. Like read this article. You like
There's an article if any of you want to subject yourself to how absolutely fucking horrifying this was.
And this, I think I understand. I don't think you can read it. Yeah,
if you like don't want to subject yourself to that, I totally don't blame you because it is just absurdly fucked up.
Yeah. And the thing is, that is not the only time that happened. And you get to see that on video because the Sri Lankan army recorded all these war crimes for fun. They basically sexually assaulted the women and then executed them point blank. That's basically what they did to the women and the children.
Yeah, literally just the
fucking horrifying.
The actions of people who become something so hideous that they personify the very concept of fucking sadism.
It's
literally just it's like at that point it's like you literally just breathe the concept of like making other people suffer. Not even just like I wouldn't even really say as much animals, because like, well, some animals are dicks like cats, but like for the most part animals are generally like, I would say, like neutral in that they do what they need to do for the most part to like actually survive. Although obviously that's not exclusive to humans, that we just do really fucked up shit for the fun of it, because I know other species do that too. Like I have watched my old cat, the Grand Chungus, who is actually an emote on my channel. He's no longer with us, but he was a big cuddly boy. Unless there was a mouse around, and then he would just like torture them for fun. I know that's not a thing that's like exclusive to humans, but just like,
No, this is absolute abject cruelty.
yeah, it's literally just getting off on like getting like often a lot of cases literally getting off on just like making another human being suffer.
Exactly. And like I said, what happened to Isaipriya, she's relatively lucky, if you could call that a luxury at all, right? The thing is, there are lots of this happened to lots of women, and the thing is, we don't know who they are. They're just dead, and they're in mass graves right now.
Yeah.
They're like, this happened roughly 12, 13 years ago. The thing is, we don't even have a death count. Oh, my mod just followed you. My mod's in the chat.
Yeah, I was gonna find a good moment to say, and thank you very much, Sandy Storm, for dropping the follow.
Yeah, she's actually provided me a decent amount of information on this. So, like, even stuff that I didn't know about this, right? She's been a good resource on this, and she's actually writing an article on Mullivaikkal as well.
Good shit.
She's a columnist for a magazine, for a newspaper.
Awesome.
So basically, this is the sort of brutality that happened towards the end of the Civil War, and this is primarily the reason that the Rajapaksas were elected in the first place, because they engaged in this sort of brutality. And the fucked up thing is, Sandy, if you can pull up the quote about this, right, that'd be fantastic. But when the generals were asked, because the generals were asked about these allegations of sexual assault, of mass sexual assault, the generals responded with, "Our soldiers are trained not to treat the Tamils as humans." I'm paraphrasing. Our soldiers are trained to not treat Tamils as humans. So why would our soldiers rape animals? That was their response to allegations of mass sexual assault.
Wow.
Yeah.
Grew up watching scenes of the war uncensored on TV every day, so I remember a lot from the end of the war. I'll try to find the quote. Are you originally from Sri Lanka, Sandy?
She's Indian, so she's Indian,
okay.
Tamil, but like, because we're from Tamil Nadu originally, Sri Lanka's right. Like, Sri Lanka,
it's right off the coast of Tamil Nadu, right?
Exactly. It's like, my mom is actually like not too far from like the maritime. My mom's from a town that's not too far from the maritime border with Sri Lanka, to give you an idea.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff that happens in Sri Lanka affected Tamil Nadu, right, directly.
Because yeah, especially that was the closest place for people to flee to, so I'm sure.
And on top of that, there were rumors that, like, because the Sri Lankan government was like hell bent on exterminating the Tamils, right?
Yeah.
There were rumors that they were going to attack Tamil Nadu next. Now, obviously,
fuck.
She's their neighbor. No, I'm Tamil from India. I have a lot of friends from Sri Lanka who fled the war in my city, though. I have no idea.
Yeah, there is quite a, there is like a decently large population of Sri Lankan Tamil refugees and now like permanent residents also that live in India, if I remember correctly.
Why the fuck are the Tamils so targeted like this? The reason is, so when the British ruled Ceylon, or Sri Lanka, right,
Yeah.
Basically, what they did was they put certain Tamils in positions of power to racially agitate against the Sinhalese. And the British did everything they can to put the Sinhalese down. And basically, it was a perfect instance of false consciousness. Oh, so it is like Rwanda. It's worse. It's worse than Rwanda. Because the thing is, a member of the oppressed, like Tutsi group, became the president of Rwanda. There is
Yeah, in
some
the
semblance
aftermath of it. Yeah.
in the aftermath. There is some semblance that Rwanda was going to recover, and it is recovering. That didn't happen in Sri Lanka. The people that got into power because of the war crimes that they committed. No, of course, but I mean, like, I'm dividing the people the same way. I swear to fucking God. Yeah, that's like basically, I mean, the thing is like, so this is like the precarious, and by the way, because they got into power like that, they basically were like, oh, well, we can do whatever the fuck we want because we can just point our hatred towards the Tamils regardless, right? And
Yeah.
even after the Civil War ended, right? And so Mullivaikkal, which is what we're commemorating tomorrow, right? So Mullivaikkal was a town of like 300,000 people, right? It's a ghost town now.
Oh,
It's a memorial.
Jesus.
The thing is, upwards of 100,000 people died in the
Holy
course of a day or
fuck.
two. And like an average Sri Lankan town in the north doesn't even hit 100,000. Like, to give you an idea of what the figure was, about as many people died in Mullivaikkal as Sri Lanka's capital city. That should give you a scale of the brutality and the deaths.
Yeah, holy fucking shit. I just oh, sorry,
There's
one
an
second.
entire Wikipedia article just listing all the sexual violence against the Tamils in Sri Lanka, and it's a long
Oh
fucking
yeah.
article.
I've peeked at it before. Yeah, it's
brutal.
it's fucking
Brutal. It's disgusting.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's that quote from that
Just first
guy.
of all, chat. First of all, chat, look at the size of that scroll button.
Yeah.
Look at the size of that scroll button.
It's,
that's how much this fucking happened. That's how commonplace this was.
Yeah, it's
the
the scroll button is very small for anybody who like might not have the stream, like very like pretty damn small.
Yeah. That means a shit ton of fucking sexual assault happened to innocent Tamil civilians. Right? And the thing is, the reason you guys have never heard about this is because every fucking government on the planet took the side of Sri Lanka. Every single one of them. Sri Lanka bought weapons from both Israel and China and the United States during the Civil War. Do not go anywhere near it if you're sensitive to sexual assault. Yeah, like the stuff we're talking about, chat, is super fucking heavy.
Yeah,
it's super bad,
and
it's
yeah, it's like
horrifying.
So yeah, this has the quote that we were talking about earlier. The quote:
throughout our training, our boys are taught to hate the tigers. They see them as disgusting animals not fit to live. I'm 200% sure that they didn't rape Tamil women. Why would they fuck them if they hate them so much?
Yeah, that's like possibly one of the most atrocious denials of war crimes I have ever fucking seen.
Yeah. Tasty lemon cake. Just know that I can't read it. Hey, listen. It's like, just know that it's like the depths of what happened is literally unfathomable, right? And the world let this happen. Israel funded. The thing is, Wickramasinghe did military exercises with the United States. The current guy, Wickramasinghe, he basically is more pro-U.S. than Rajapaksa was, who was more pro-China, right? But again, like he still committed war crimes in and of himself. Yeah, owners never rape their not human slaves.
They mean
Exactly.
yeah, they mean as in like prog means like it is in the sorry, my brain just melted so bad. Like yeah, is in a just in case anybody was like misreading that just in case anybody was misreading that, yeah, that wasn't like a claim that slave owners never raped their not human slaves. It was the whole thing, like it was like, yeah, as if like other people in human history have never like committed sexual violence against people they viewed as subhuman. No, that's never been a thing that's happened before. Not at all. Like in that like type of sense. Just to clear it.
Basically, yeah. So the depths of this shit has it's basically it's horrific, right? It's like it's insanely horrific, right? And this is the sort of bedrock that Sri Lanka is operating on when it came to what the Rajapaksa government was doing. They voted Rajapaksa in because of the brutality that he committed towards the Tamils of Sri Lanka as well. Like it's I know I've read about it, all this kind of thing in the past to educate myself. I'm not saying I can't read it because I don't want to. I have PTSD and know my limits is all it is. Listen, hey, tasty lemon cake. It's fine. It's fine. As long as you care, that's the more important thing. Because here's the thing. I was talking to Nabil about this earlier, and the thing is, so the quote 1 million one death is a tragedy, 1 million is a statistic, right? We've all heard that quote before, right? The thing is, to this day, we don't have an official death count. We don't know how many people died because since the Civil War, there have been 3 successful governments that have refused to investigate this. And this happened 13 years ago. Basically, what this means is we will never know the actual death count of what happened in the Civil War. It's very likely we will never actually know how many people died in as a result of the Sri Lankan government. It's a very high likelihood we'll never know, right? So these people don't even have the luxury of being a statistic. We don't even know. A lot of families, a lot of Sri Lankan Tamil diaspora families, they don't even have that luxury, right? They just don't know. I mean, they've had to see their relatives dead either on camera. They've had to identify like their relatives dead in mass graves, or they don't know. It's like it's or they don't know that their relatives are dead. They just don't know. Right? To this day, they just have to assume that their relatives are dead, that they're not in Sri Lanka anymore.
Yeah.
Right? And the fucked up thing is, even after all this happened, there's a documentary that happened in Sri Lanka where the Sri Lankan government continued to just kidnap Tamil people and just put a bullet through their heads and just throw them into mass graves. That's still something after the Civil War that the Sri Lankan government did. They just randomly grabbed Tamil people, put a bullet through their head, or asked for ransom money. And even in cases where the ransom money was given, they just put a bullet through the head and say, "Yep, sorry, we took your money." they'd often just kidnap Tamils just to grab money from their families and then even just kill their relatives anyway and put them in mass graves. That's something that happened after the war.
Yeah. Yeah, like I'm just I'm reading fucking things about reports against really horrific things that the fucking security forces of the Sri Lankan government are still doing to Tamil civilians. And these are just the ones that have been reported somehow.
Yeah. These are like I'm talking about stuff that's been reported.
Yeah, exactly.
Like chat, keep this in mind. I'm talking about what's been reported and what's been recorded. Think about the shit that they hid.
Yeah, especially considering like all the stuff that probably would have stayed hidden if it hadn't been like exposed by variety of brave individuals who managed to get that fucking footage to people who would expose it.
Also,
And,
the UN was present on the ground the entire time and did absolute jack shit. In fact, they handed over coordinates of hospitals to the army until civilians had to beg them to stop because they kept getting bombed.
yeah, like what the fuck? Yeah, the UN is supposed to be the thing to try to like prevent this from happening and holding people accountable when it does. And most of the time they do jack shit. It's like so fucking inexcusable.
Oh no, the army posted those videos. They released those videos for fun.
Oh wait, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, the army posted a lot of those videos. Yeah, no, the army
that's
posted
right.
them.
It wasn't people like that wasn't people smuggling fucking secret footage out. That was people bragging about it.
Yeah. That's what
How
I was
the fuck did I say that?
no, that's what I was trying to say. Like, this is the stuff that they were bragging about. Imagine the stuff they were ashamed of.
Yeah.
Like there are videos, like I said, there are videos that are of horrific violence. Like, they're grainy, but it's just in. I watched the documentary again today while I was doing work.
Yeah, it's literally just
and
people being monsters, right?
It did not. Yeah. Like, the only thing I felt like while I was watching the documentary was I'm like numb to this at this point, because for so fucking long, no one's come to help. No one has.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, it's important that we talk about solidarity for causes like Palestine. It's super important that we talk about solidarity for causes like the indigenous people that go missing in America, or the shit that happens in several African countries as well, right? And the sort of messed up shit that happens in African countries as well. It's important to talk about solidarity for those countries as well. But even among like leftist communities, no one talks about this. And like that's the fucking like it like that's a sort of feeling that like that just that's when I really felt alone. That's when I figured like we're fucking alone. Like, no one's coming to help. You know what I mean? Doesn't matter what we do.
And that's fucking horrid, because that's horrid that like these are some of like the most horrendous, some of the most like absurdly fucking horrendous acts one could commit upon other human beings you could possibly think of. And And then even in communities that or even among circles that claim to care about this shit, like in Sri Lanka, this got like especially such little publicity. Like
Yeah,
it has received such a little focus,
yeah,
especially
and that's why
considering
I'm
how
like,
still frequent it is too.
yeah, and that's why I'm like, listen, I gotta fucking spread awareness about this, man. Like, because here's the thing: there's no one that's talking about this. No one is, and the thing is, the thing that's driving me is like this affects me at least a little bit in this way. Um, like I'm like this affects me a little bit because I'm a Tamil person, right?
Yeah.
My mom is a Tamil person, right? We're Tamarins, right? And those are our brothers and sisters that were gunned down in cold blood, that were sexually assaulted in cold blood. And like the thing is, there are people that we know that have become so jaded, like people in Tamil Nadu that have become so jaded, that have become so pessimistic, that have become so cynical, right? That like no one is gonna like the thing is no one's held anyone in Sri Lanka to account. And the thing is, it's not just these guys. It's not the Rajapaksa family that's done horrific shit. Like Black July, for example, one of it was coordinated by one of the opposition politicians' fathers, right? Sajit Premadas's father was like the mastermind behind Black July.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Everything has been fucked in Sri Lanka for a very, very long time. It's been fucked. And there's never been anyone that came to help the Tamils. There's never been anyone that came to help. And it's like there was one point where I just broke down in tears on stream. Cause like it felt I felt alone. And this didn't happen to me. Right? None of this happened to me directly. But I can't fucking imagine what it's like to be a Sri Lankan Tamil. I cannot imagine what it's like because no one Tamil women are still preyed upon because of the precedent we set by brushing this under the rug. Even people in India sexualize the fuck out of Tamil women because of 30 years of being objects. Exactly. It's super fucked up.
Yeah, not
And
to
like
mention that I know there's obviously a lot of Tamil people in India, but they don't control enough of Indian federal politics, unfortunately, that they were able to stop the Indian government from actively fucking participating in this shit.
no, no. What the Indian government did was they also committed war crimes in Sri Lanka.
Yeah, exactly.
They also
That's
what the Indian government did is they invaded Jaffna and they basically just raped random Tamil women and children. They did the same shit. They did the same shit. They killed entire hospitals. They gunned down entire hospitals. So yeah, they also did fucked up shit, and they also backed Sri Lanka as well. I mean, this whole situation of what happened to the Tamils is like super fucked. And the reason this is super relevant and the frustrating part is that this part never gets talked about, right? Because I mean, people don't talk about this, but like the Sri Lankan civil war is what led to the consolidation of power by the Rajapaksa government. And the Rajapaksas thinking they can do whatever the fuck they want. It's because it's because the fascist mentality was already engendered within the Sri Lankan population for a very long time. And so they were willing to go with anyone that was willing to do anything at all costs to end the civil war. And again, my sympathies are also with the Sinhalese civilians that died, right? But the thing is, you guys have, at the end of the day,
you are not victims of the Sri Lankan government. Oh, or until now you weren't, right? Now you're understanding like how brutal the Rajapaksas were, right? Now you're beginning to understand like the Rajapaksa government's brutality. Now you're beginning to understand a little bit of what the Tamils went through for decades now. The Tamil government had no choice but to cooperate because the state will be politically and economically shunned at a time when a major wartime recession was already taking place in India. Kargil had just taken place, and Tamil Nadu had just no choice. Yeah, that's the other thing.
Yeah, plus even if like a lot of, I can imagine like India is a big country with many states and many different ethnic groups. They, even if like even if Tamil Nadu and Tamil people made up like who were like super actively opposed to this shit, like made up the bulk of the state's reputation, I'm sure that wouldn't be enough to like override uh the I'm sure that wouldn't be enough by itself to override politicians from other parts of India that are even more so like, fuck it, I hate Tamil people.
So here's the thing. So let me give you a personal anecdote, right?
Yeah.
So to give you an idea of how much of a stranglehold the Indian government had over Tamil Nadu at the time. So my grandmother was a radio announcer on All India Radio, right?
Oh shit.
So we'll get to what happened. Basically, what happened was, my family, my dad's side, was actually initially pro Tamil Tigers. They were pro LTTE, but because my grandmother was an announcer on All India Radio, she basically had to toe the line of the Indian government, which was she had to be pro invasion of Sri Lanka, and she had to be pro whatever the Indian Army did. And because of what the Indian Army did in Sri Lanka, she was threatened by the LTTE with assassination. Her and her entire family, like my dad.
Oh, holy shit.
Yeah, like my dad was basically threatened with assassination. So my dad and his mom and his dad were threatened with assassination. So that's the idea of the stranglehold that the Indian government had over Tamil Nadu at the time. Right? So that's the other thing. The Tamils in Tamil Nadu were largely helpless. They couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah, exactly.
They had to watch as their brethren in Sri Lanka were massacred and raped and burned alive and all sorts of horrific shit and just shot point blank.
I saw Sandy mention in chat also because of with more political context, like also because of the assassination of Rajiv Gandhi, Tamil Nadu couldn't be seen as dissenting because then they'll like be accused of being like anti-national and whatnot.
Yeah, because the LTTE, the Tamil Tigers, assassinated Rajiv Gandhi. So that means if you dissented with what India did, that basically meant that you were tacitly, in the eyes of the Indian government, you were tacitly supporting the Tigers.
Yeah. And I'm guessing they like probably equated that with like tacitly supporting wanting to like split up wanting to like split off pieces of the Indian state to like
here's the
domination and shit.
Here's the thing. Even to this day in India, Tamils are characterized as terrorists. Like that's one of the there are two things people think of when they think of Tamil Nadu, right? First of all, they think of the dark skin. That's number one, which is already kind of fucked up. Second of all, they think of anti-Hindi imposition, which we've talked about on this program earlier, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then the last time we talked a lot about how Tamil Nadu being a stronghold of like the anti-Indian imposition politics.
Right. And then the third thing that people associate with Tamil Nadu, terrorism. That's the other thing. They think, I mean, they're too basically like there's a show called Family Man 2, which basically portrays people in Tamil Nadu. It's supposed to portray, but they don't use like Sri Lankan Tamil, they use like the Indian Tamil. That it's a whole controversy basically. Like again, people are very sensitive about this subject in Tamil Nadu because they were literally fucking genocided.
Oh yeah.
The other thing, the irony of it all is like we get accused of like when going back to the Hindi imposition thing for a second, people accuse the Tamils of like being super jingoistic about the language and the culture and shit, and like having this superiority complex.
That's fucking rich. Coming from the people who are so jingoistic about their own language, are like, I'm gonna move from like Uttar Pradesh down to Tamil Nadu and then get mad at Tamil people for not speaking Hindi to me.
Exactly.
When they run into me on the street and don't know that I might not, and don't like know that I speak Hindi better than I speak Tamil yet. Like,
I mean,
it's the thinking there.
The thing is, like, yeah, no shit, the Tamils are going to be a little bit defensive about their culture because there's always a sense of like we're under attack on all sides. Like there is a sublimated tension on all sides. Like in Sri Lanka, we obviously know like what I mean. Now the audience is now hip to what's been happening to Tamils in Sri Lanka for a very long time. But even in India, there's a sublimated tension between Tamil Nadu and North India, and North India largely holds all the power.
Yeah,
and so there's obviously going to be a sense of like, hey, listen, we don't want our culture to fucking die. Like we don't want to be fucking massacred. We don't want to die. Like, can we at least keep our culture alive, please? Can we at least speak our language? Can we at least like stay alive for a second? And I wish I had this tweet. But the subreddit that posted it like went private for a little bit. But there's this one guy in India that got mad about this whole Hindi imposition thing, about how Tamils don't speak Hindi. And basically he said, well, here's the thing. Tamil Nadu is part of India, so therefore Tamil Nadu should speak Hindi, right? So the national language should be spoken in Tamil Nadu. He's like, if you want to go, no. The best part is, he said, Tamil Nadu is part of India. It's not your land. Okay, that's one. And then the second thing is, he said, if you want to speak Tamil, go create a country in Sri Lanka. Go to Sri Lanka. I shit you not. He literally said, sounds like speak American but Hindi. It's worse. It's like a British guy going to Ukraine, for example, and getting angry that no one speaks English. That's what it's like. It's like a British guy going into like Russia or like Kazakhstan and getting angry no one speaks English there. That's basically what it's like. And the guy was like, this dude was like, hey, Tamil Nadu is part of India. It's not your land. It's my land. And if you want to speak Tamil, go to Sri Lanka or something.
Yeah, that is like the peak of chauvinistic dickhead fucking utterly fucking reprehensible mindset.
Like, to give you an idea, that's one of two situations. Like there's one of two possibilities. Either he doesn't know anything about what happened in Sri Lanka and he's completely out of touch and he's like just an asshole for being completely out of touch. He's just racist because he thinks South Indians originate from Sri Lanka or something, right? That's one possibility. The other possibility is, oh no, he knew exactly what happened to the Tamils. And the subtext of what he's saying is, Yeah, go to Sri Lanka and get gunned down. That's the other possibility. That's the other possibility of what he said. He knew what he was saying, and he just wants us to die. I just want to let that sink in. That's the thing, right? That's the thing. There is a sense of we're being attacked on all sides. So, of course, we're going to be defensive.
Yeah.
We're going to be defensive a little bit, right?
Yeah, of course.
It's like, how the fuck is any of this? Because, like, what the fuck did the Tamils do in Sri Lanka to deserve any of this?
Yeah.
What do they do?
And then when it comes to it, and that's why it's also so rich to hear like some Indian dude be like some North Indian guy, my bad, Tamil Nadu is part of India. What? Some like North Indian chauvinistic dickhead who hates Tamil people. The typical like Modi stan from Uttar Pradesh or Gujarat to act like their culture is like under attack because they're not, because people aren't necessarily just like speaking to them in Hindi first thing when they run into them on the street when they're in fucking Chennai. And it's just like, dude, you are the one doing the attacking that you that you claim that these people are doing to you. And then you whine about it when they push back against it.
Yeah. So, like, this is sort of like, so going back to Sri Lanka for a second, this is the bedrock of what's been going on in Sri Lanka. This has been something that's been happening this is something that's been happening in Sri Lanka for decades. This is a conflict decades in the making. And unfortunately, until people realize like this until people rise up together, which people seem to be doing right now, but unfortunately that situation could change at any particular moment. Just a charismatic fascist, all he needs to do is come in and say, listen, I'll fix all the problems, but you got to do me this one favor and um just wipe out the rest of the Tamils, right? That's all he needs to say, and it's game over. That's all he needs to say.
Yeah.
Thankfully, that hasn't happened yet, but unfortunately, the situation is going to get worse before it gets better. And Ranil Wickremesinghe is not the guy that is a calming enough dude in this time. And the other thing to keep in mind is that Ranil Wickremesinghe was appointed by the war criminal president. So he's there just to appease the population as a face-saving maneuver. That's it. This is still Gotabaya's regime. And the thing is, Gotabaya, the parliament does not want the Gotabaya regime gone. The parliament just voted uh, uh, against a no confidence vote against Gotabaya Rajapaksa.
Yeah, I was seeing that when I like looked up some stuff relating to the news out of Sri Lanka's economic crisis a little while ago on Google. He just managed to beat a no confidence motion against him. Big Sedge.
Yeah. So shit's gonna get far worse before shit gets better.
I was gonna ask this earlier. So I know that like Sri Lanka has both a president and a prime minister. What exactly is like at least like what is supposed to be like the balance of power between them? Because I know like India has a president, but it's really like much more of a ceremonial role, and like Modi holds way more power than the president does. In Sri Lanka, is it one of those like especially with the the Rajapaksa brothers has been like one of those deals where regardless of what it nominally is supposed to be on paper, the two kind of like just hold the positions and jointly like call all the fucking shots together.
So the thing with Sri Lanka is it's what's called a semi-presidential system.
Gotcha.
So it's actually the same system that Russia has and Ukraine
Yeah.
has, and France has.
Yeah.
So
The president actually holds like a decent bit of power as opposed to like the president of Italy or India's president's relatively powerless. Like they're mostly parliamentary, if I remember correctly, right?
it's mostly parliamentary, but the president has some like OP powers basically.
Okay.
So the president, for example, can basically just kick out a chief minister if he wants. He has the
Oh.
ability to just basically invalidate state level elections and just kick chief ministers out.
Wow.
Sri Lanka
That's
president is also fairly ceremonial. No, it's not fairly ceremonial. It's actually a semi-presidential system. So there is a decent amount of power that is shared between the president and the prime minister.
yeah. I'm sure that the way that like those two dickheads have been running it though, and I'm sure plenty of people before them, regardless of what it is on paper, in practice, whoever the president and prime minister are have way more like completely unchecked power than they like on paper should have, which is generally a thing that happens in all states, but in some cases much worse than others.
Yeah.
Like that's one of my biggest criticisms of how presidentialism, like how the United States runs is and now how Turkey runs, even though Turkey used to be like a semi-presidential with a stronger parliament than a president, but now as a presidential system, my criticism of presidentialism for sure is like it has this tendency to concentrate way too much fucking power into one specific person.
Yeah.
And then
he holds more power than the president, but the PM still runs the country. Yeah, that's a more accurate description.
Yeah, gotcha.
So basically, like, yeah. So Sri Lanka,
in a lot of semi-presidential systems, isn't it often like a lot of the president's power and like actual duties more so deal with foreign policy than domestic matters, and the prime minister is like much more in charge of domestic?
Yeah, I think so.
At least in a lot of presidential systems, it works out that way. I'm sure not all, or semi-presidential systems, not in presidential systems. That's like what America has, which really sucks. Although, doesn't matter what your fucking system is on paper if the president and the prime minister and the semi-presidential system are just two dickheads.
Sri Lanka is basically an ethnocracy.
Yeah.
Like the honest truth is that Sri Lanka is basically just an ethnocracy. And
yeah,
people do refer to it as an ethnocratic state. Like there's never been a non-Sinhalese head of state in Sri Lanka. That has never happened. Every head of state or every president in Sri Lanka has been Sinhalese. Every single one of them.
Yeah, it's basically an ethnocracy. And
Boy meets
they control.
Mini.
Oh shit! What's up, Boy Meets Mini? How are you doing tonight? Thank you very much for the raid. Shout out, Boy Meets Mini.
Pit Crew raid.
Oh, nice. You were shredding some Assetto Corsa Competizione based. Yeah, me and I was talking about some stuff in the news and talking about then some like obvious bad faith chatters where at first they didn't seem too bad faith, but then they just got annoying. But I was talking about the disease of nationalism, and there was also and we were also watching Democracy Now! And watching stuff about the and they mentioned stuff about Sri Lanka's current economic crisis. And so me and ArunAnnow have been talking about like not just the present crisis, but the entire background of what has essentially caused what's going on now.
Yeah. I mean, so yeah, we've been basically going over the history of Sri Lanka. And I think the thing is, it's super important because this stuff didn't come out of nowhere.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Ah, thanks for the
Like
shout out.
ultimately it's definitely you were saying earlier,
Yeah,
the
there's
British used like the British, and as did like every European power everywhere they colonized, they used all sorts of like divide and conquer shit, and we're and that's and we still see the effects of that. And one of the most horrific but least at least like well publicized examples of a horrific consequences, this is Sri Lanka
yeah,
in the modern history of it.
it's intense and important. And again, thank you for covering this topic.
Of course.
I mean, there's no need to thank me. I feel weird when receiving thanks about this because like I should like the thing is I don't want to be the only guy that yammers about this every single time this comes up. Like I don't want to be the only guy that talks about this. I want this to spread. I want people to talk about this because like the thing is it's cool to thank me for all this stuff, but we gotta like we can't let the painful memories of what happened in Sri Lanka like we can't let the painful memories of Sri Lanka die. We can't let them die because if we do, then more people will die along with them. Right? Because if people don't remember what happened, how bad the civil war, well, how bad the genocide was towards the Tamils, then it'll be further minimized by successive Sri Lankan governments, and they'll use that as an excuse to be like, "Hey, let's do some more genocide." Just do, hey, listen, man, we can have a little genocide here with your dinner, right? They'll blot in a blasé manner. They'll just go ahead and do more horrific acts, and they'll minimize it even further. And we have to. I mean, the only thing that we can do right now, we can't do anything realistically, right? We can't do anything about Sri Lanka realistically, but the only thing that we can do, the only thing that we can honestly do is we got to keep this. We got to keep talking about this. That's the only thing we can do. And especially like the left needs to take this up as one of their issues, like alongside Palestine, alongside what's happening to the Uyghurs, alongside what's happening to the people in
Yeah.
Kashmir. This needs to be one of those issues
Yeah.
because we watched the world watched as hundreds of thousands of people died at the hands of a fascist government, and we can't let this keep happening.
Like you said, you were said like like pretty much like every fucking country on earth just like said, yeah, we support the Sri Lankan government doing this, basically. Whether it was like outright or through like silence while giving like material support economically or whatnot.
Yeah. It's super fucked up. It's super fucked up. Yeah, in addition to like what the Sri Lankan police have fucking done. Like the chat's talking about the police, but the police in America, right? And that just
Yeah.
reminds me of like what the fucking bastard Sri Lankan police did in like Jaffna. Oh God, just the monsters. Feel totally out of the loop. I don't know anything about Sri Lanka. Um,
It's not your
yeah,
fault because it's so other than like other than like a Channel 4 documentary that aired like like 10 years ago and then like a follow-up to it, there really has not been enough like international coverage and attention paid to the absurdly fucking horrendous atrocities committed against Sri Lankan Tamils by the Sinhalese dominated Sri Lankan governments.
I don't blame you. It got brushed under the rug because Tamil people were a political inconvenience. Exactly. We're a political inconvenience, whether it be in India, whether it be in Sri Lanka, whether it be in Malaysia, whether it be in Singapore. Doesn't matter. We're a political inconvenience. And
That's right. I always forget that Tamil is one of the 4 official languages of Singapore.
yeah,
Are Tamil people in Singapore largely treated as like a lower class? I'm guessing
in
based on what you're
Singapore,
saying.
not to the same degree, but in Malaysia, yeah, a lot of them are, yeah. Is because I mean it's largely a mix of sectarian lines
Yeah.
because Tamils are largely Hindu, especially in Malaysia, which is Muslim dominated.
Yeah.
So like there have been incidents of like the Malaysian government doing fucked up shit to Tamils as well. All states are fascist to some extent. They only know power and will do whatever they can to preserve power. Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yeah. That's especially why I'm at the very least like quite anarchist adjacent, definitely in like the much more libertarian leaning towards anti-statism sides of socialist thought.
Same here. That's actually the same reason why I lean towards libertarian socialism, honestly, because I just don't trust states. I don't trust them
Yeah.
because states
Even
ultimately
these
they
states that
are
are
oppressive.
yeah, even these states that are supposedly like run by the workers, like one of the like least horrid out one of the like in more recent times, a state that I can think of that where like after some like really fucking shitty civil war and it was won by like some group calling themselves like communists or Maoists, and it didn't end in and it didn't like result in it like some period of some like total like egomaniac with a fucking personality cult creating some fucking horror scape like Stalin or Mao is Nepal is and CP Nepal is nothing fucking special. They're basically just like kind of from what I understand they're basically just like kind of spicier sock dems that are they're kind of just like spicy sock dems that that have like improved things rather they've improved things like pretty fucking significantly over that dickhead Ganendra. Speaking of which, I'm still like I've read about how some people theorize that he might have like somehow like manipulated his fucking nephew into like killing the whole royal family so he could be king and then himself so he could be king again. But that does seem a little far fetched, but it's still just so weird. But yeah, that dude was such a fucking prick, and CP Nepal Maoist Center has definitely like improved some things, but in the grand scheme of things, they're basically just like spicier European sock dems with their symbology and certain parts of their rhetoric have like a lot of the same fucking problems and are by no means like this fucking like actually getting closer to this like workers state they claim to stand for. And that was one of the like and that was like one of the less like shitty outcomes of like super like fucking state oriented fucking leftist thought, like even when like it like the grant the between all these like so many of these like really horrid atrocities, the parallel is like the state drove this shit in order to like consolidate its power at the expense of the vulnerable.
Yeah. Like that's the fucking reason that like I don't know, like I don't know. My goal with this, and so let me talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing tomorrow. So we will be so tomorrow is today actually.
Yeah,
Tomorrow is
true.
Mullivaikkal, which is the Tamil genocide remembrance day. Now this is to commemorate the massacre of Mullivaikkal, right? Which basically turned a 300,000 population town into a ghost town, basically. About 100,000 people basically died, right?
Yeah.
Um, and basically, we're going to be commemorating that for the most part. And one of the ways we're going to be commemorating that is we'll be doing like a sync stream. So, kind of like what Hassan has done with like DMCA-able debates. Like he won't show the documentary on screen, but we're gonna be watching the killing fields.
Shit.
Yeah. And so basically we're going to see what brutality and what horror the Sri Lankan government committed towards the end of the civil war. Now, for obvious reasons, I'm not going to show the documentary on screen, like because half the documentary is gore. It's just dead bodies. Is that a documentary? It's called Sri Lanka's Killing Fields. We're gonna be watching that tomorrow.
I saw when I looked it up on Wikipedia, they I guess Channel 4 made like a follow up to it too a few years later.
What is it? What was it about?
It was called Sri Lanka's Killing Fields War Crimes Unpunished. Yeah, it came out like a year after the original Sri Lanka's Killing Fields. It was also on Channel 4. Made by filmmaker Callum McRae. This documentary focused on 4 specific cases and investigated who is responsible for them, using amateur video from the conflict zone filmed by civilians and Sri Lankan soldiers, photographs and statements by civilian soldiers and UN workers. This documentary traced ultimate responsibility for the cases to Sri Lanka's political and military leaders. Of course, the Sri Lankan government continues to deny all of the fucking allegations in some of the most outrageously fucking callous manners I've ever seen from political officials.
Yep. So we're gonna be watching this tomorrow. Watching, quote unquote. Basically, we're gonna be syncing up, and I'm still debating on whether to basically allow the audio on stream. I don't think that's TOS. Obviously the visuals
just hover your finger over the button that cuts your desktop audio feed on Streamlabs or OBS or whichever one of those you use.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. We'll sort it out, but that's what we're going to be watching tomorrow. And we're just going to be going through everything war crimes Sri Lanka, and we're going to be revisiting, who are the Tamils, and who are we culturally. We're going to be talking about that stuff as well.
Oh, when I was glancing over the Wikipedia about the original documentary earlier, I missed this part where they After denouncing this documentary as a fake, the defense ministry produced their own fucking documentary called Lies Agreed Upon, which is literally just people trying to be like, no, that was misleading. Wow.
Yeah. So this is one of the things we're going to be doing tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be all about Tamil genocide in Mullivaikkal. Fucking smear campaigns to cover the reality of it. Yep. Yeah. We're going to be talking about this stuff. And if you are, listen, if you are not, it's going to be a very tough documentary to swallow. I'm not going to lie. And this is someone that has watched this documentary multiple different times. The first time was when I was 12, basically. And
Jesus.
this happened when I was like, this stuff happened in 2009. So I was 12 at the time, actually. Yeah. I watched it when I was like 12, 13, 14, when all that stuff happened. Yeah. So, or I think I was 15 when I watched it, something like that. I was way younger than I am now. And it doesn't get any better. It doesn't make you feel any less angry. And every time I watch it, it just makes me feel even more like doomer pilled. It makes me feel hopeless. Uh, but but this needs to be shown because people need to realize how brutal, how atrocious, how horrifying this was. And everyone just sat there and watched as it all happened. And so, yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. That's what we're going to be doing tomorrow. That's basically almost the entirety of what's going to be happening tomorrow. From one product of killing fields to another, I love you, brother, and I stand with the Tamils. Thank you so much. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I noticed Prague. You said earlier that your family were Cambodian refugees that came over here because of the utter fucking horror that the Khmer Rouge was, and the other and the other fucking horrors inflicted upon Cambodia, largely because of political machinations in Southeast Asia that made the entire region hell on earth for fucking 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really hope that like the current situation in Sri Lanka does not just I hope that the outrage stays unified in directing the rage at the like nepotistic corrupt ghouls in charge of the whole thing,
Yeah.
instead of and it doesn't end up getting steered in the direction of let's blame this all on the Tamils again. By the
Yeah.
way, because people bring up Khmer Rouge, they were US backed so that they could fight the Viet Cong. Yeah, the Khmer Rouge, they were like partially US backed, and they were also like, that was like a weird thing in this Southeast Asian political machinations is Khmer Rouge was like simultaneous, because the US had their like own guy that they installed that I remember, Lon Nol, the Khmer Republic. But then the US ultimately ended up like supporting the U.S. ultimately like ended up like helping support the Khmer Rouge along with their like big bolstering of support from the Chinese government wanting to get their own influence in Southeast Asia. And as both of those governments supporting them as a means to like fight against the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese army and shit. That ultimately ended up with Vietnam invading the place and Vietnam invading Cambodia and place having like recurring civil violence for like most of the 80s, if I remember correctly. It's why the CIA deserves to be so fucking globally hated.
Oh boy. Hold on a second.
What's up?
The Rajapaksa camp is also now trying to pin the blame on Muslims and Tamils for causing the violence.
Oh, of fucking course.
Oh boy. Oh my god. Ay, ay, ay. Fuck. Dude, shit is super fucked there. Seriously. Oh boy. Oh boy. Here we go again.
Did you just see some like new update in some
So,
news publication?
No, and not Rajapaksa directly, but like the people, his supporters are trying to like blame the Tamils.
Oh, just like dickheads on dickheads on the internet and shit.
No, in real life.
Oh, gotcha.
I can't close my eyes for 2 minutes and this shit happens. Yeah. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Yeah.
Well, you
So
just
that's
stumble on something.
yeah. No, I was actually in the Surfs Discord, and there's a bunch of people there that know what the fuck happened in Sri Lanka.
Oh God.
I've been trying to it's always Hamas, but Tamils and Muslims. Actually, the situation in Sri Lanka is not that dissimilar to what's going on in Israel. Like you can think of the Tamil Tigers as Hamas, basically. Except that the Tamil Tigers were actually the original goal of the Tamil Tigers was extremely noble, or was more noble than than Hamas was.
Hamas was like
Hamas
Hamas
is
and Israel like also like mutually benefit each other's existence because they both like give
actually no.
people something to be afraid of and therefore something to keep like convincing people to let them have all the control.
Yeah, that's actually not that dissimilar. But yeah, that's actually not that dissimilar to the relationship between the Tigers. I'm a little lost on the Tamil Tigers thing. I apologize. What were they? So the Tamil Tigers were the guerrilla group that fought the Sri Lankan government during the Civil War.
1983 to 2009 was like the dates.
Yes.
2009 was when the Sri Lankan government like brought it to an end by going like
mask off, like,
by just like being as genocidal as physically possible, which is what gets talked about in that documentary. And I know that I think do historians often like disagree on the start date, or is the start date generally considered to be 1983? After a Black July.
It's generally considered, I think, like Black July is what kicked off the actual like legit Civil War. But like to be fair, like the Tamil Tigers were formed before Black July. So you can kind of basically say like when the Tamil Tigers were formed is when the Civil War starts. But I mean,
gotcha.
We're debating semantics at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
The Tamil Tigers are brutal authoritarians themselves, but the Sri Lankan government brutalized them. Yes. So again, I want to be fair. Like we are not like apologists for the Tamil Tigers. Like public losers, lefties, and their obsession with genocides are bad.
Kappa. Thank you very much for resubscribing for your Thank you very much for resubscribing for your 4th month, public loser. How are you doing tonight? Yeah, we've just been talking with, I'll give you another shout out here, Arun. Shout out ArunAnnow. We've just been talking with Arun here about Sri Lanka's current economic and political crisis and the general backdrop of what ultimately led up to this with Sri Lanka's modern history, especially focusing on like Sri Lanka's civil war that started as a result of and continues and still started as a result of like hideous persecution against the Sri Lankan Tamil population by Sri Lanka's government, which continues to this day even after the actual like warfare is over.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a great explanation, basically. Long story short, the economic situation of Sri Lanka was brought on by basically the population voting for basically their version of Trump, almost like Trump mixed with Bush, kind of. And basically, like the thing is like the thing is like but they voted these guys in that wrecked the country because of the war crimes they committed and because of the genocide that they helped perpetrate, that they continued for a very long time. These guys were brought into power because of that. So, like, that's the reason this economic crisis has been happening. It's because of the authoritarianism and the fascism that was engendered in the population for a very long time. Like, this is a crisis decades in the making.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, that's what's been happening for a very, very long time, public loser. And like, if you want, you can go back in the VOD, and basically like run through everything we've talked about. But if you want to
I'll
know
have to upload this talk on YouTube, which I've said about other talks I've had with people in a couple of sim races that I actually won, and I've been being lazy and haven't uploaded them to YouTube yet because I'm a fucking lazy piece of shit when it comes to editing videos because it's tedious and annoying. And
no, I feel you.
It's tedious and annoying, and I wish I could pay a fucking editor.
No, I mean, I'm just trying to, like, the other thing is like I'm also just trying to spread awareness about this as much as possible.
Yeah.
Like, I actually talked a little bit about this with Endless Cemetery. And I mean, thank God he was free at the time and I was able to just hop on during his abortion fun stream.
Awesome.
Thank God I was able to grab some time to get on there and talk about that. But I'm just it's a very serious topic. It's a very like horrifying topic. Public loser, if you want to learn about like just a tasty taste of like what kind of horrific shit the Sri Lankan government did to its Tamil minority, I'm gonna pull up Isapriya's link again, Isapriya's biography again. That's like the basis of what you need to know. That's the kind of depravity.
Yeah, feel free to link it in chat too.
That's the public depravity. That's the level of depravity we're talking about here. Like, this happened on a mass scale. Like, hundreds, if not thousands, of women endured the same fate as Isapriya.
Yeah. Like numbers of people which we will truly never actually know.
Exactly.
And that's the thing I was gonna say this a little while back. The super horrifying thing about that is the like ultimate form of erasure of a human being. It's like as if to make it as if they like never fucking existed like that. Like make sure, and that's like that's clearly like what that's clearly like what like a big motivation of that was, is like, we think you deserve to be erased from this fucking planet.
Right. Right. And chat, like, I know we've dwelled on this topic for a little bit, um a lot, and it's a very heavy topic to talk about. Um and it and after this, take all the mental break that you need, like, honestly. And if you feel like
I'll probably
if
play some AFL Evolution 2 to lighten the mood.
I have to read up more on this. Being American, I barely know of any other country's existence. I'm sorry, guys, but I have to drop off for now, doing homework.
Yeah, no
Hey, good.
worries, Pog.
No worries, man. Take it easy.
You have
But
a
yeah,
good one.
that's basically, yeah. Have a good one. Thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate you hearing me out. Um, yeah, this has been a very heavy topic to talk about, and solidarity room. Thank you so much. Um, but yeah, like, honestly, like, the best that we can do is talk about this.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only thing we can do at this point, because we're never getting those, like, we're not even talking about nominal justice at this point. That's never going to happen. So that's never going to happen for those people. So the only thing we can do is at least build some solidarity within leftist community, within the leftist online leftist community, or whatever it may be, and just get people talking about this, because that's the only thing we can do at this point. And maybe something will come of it. Maybe something will be done about that. Will be done about it. But people have been protesting about this stuff in Canada, the UK. Everyone's been protesting to no avail, unfortunately. And it's just super frustrating that nothing has moved at all. Please message me on here or on Twitter. I don't have a Twitter account, or I do, but I don't use it. But it's been like, it's super. It's super. It's super disheartening to talk about this all the time, but I have to, uh, like, because Lord knows, like, no one else will. And it's just because, like, there's a concerted effort to sweep this under the rug.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's just disheartening. Every country wants to sweep this under the rug because Tamils are politically inconvenient. It's that simple. Um, but yeah, this was a very heavy topic to talk about.
Yeah, it
If
definitely
you,
was, but it was a really good talk. Thanks for calling in.
yeah, anytime. Thanks for letting me on. Thanks for having me on to talk about this in the first place.
Of course.
But yeah, so guys, if you guys want to learn more about all this, um, we will be doing a stream tomorrow to basically commemorate the genocide, and we will be talking about this basically all stream. Um, yeah, that's basically what's gonna um, happen tomorrow. Sorry, but what is so politically inconvenient about them? Does the country they're in have some resource that everyone needs? No, it's because I mean, yeah, basically in Sri Lanka's it's strategically important for its geostrategic position. And in India, like, they're a minority, but, like, again, they're not, like, they don't have enough real power in India either, right? It's just that they've managed to gain some autonomy in India. It's just like no one it's just like the problem of being an ethnic minority wherever you go, right?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter where you go, you'll always be an ethnic minority, right?
Yep.
Even in my so-called homeland of India, like, I'm an ethnic minority, right? And the thing is, India is a multi-ethnic country to begin with, right? But the thing is, like in Sri Lanka, I'm also an ethnic minority as well. And the thing is, I'm like actually kind of scared to go to Sri Lanka. Like, I'm not going to set foot in Sri Lanka
I
because,
wouldn't blame you at all, because that does not sound like a particularly safe thing for a Tamil person to do, considering
yeah,
the circumstances.
Sandy sums it up perfectly. Sri Lanka's geographical position makes them a pawn in the game that the U.S. and China are playing over control of the Indian Ocean for maritime trade. Yeah, that's basically why we're politically inconvenient. That's perfectly the reason. Yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, the international players just prop up the Sinhalese government
To
and just let them do what they fucking want.
yeah.
My brain has gone completely blank.
No, it's fine. This stuff, like I said, this stuff is super heavy. It's super heavy to talk about, and every time I talk about it, it doesn't get any easier. But fuck, yeah, it definitely doesn't get any easier each time I talk about it. But chat, that's basically what I'm going to be talking about tomorrow. I'm going to be talking about the Mullivaikkal massacre. I'm going to be talking about the war crimes that Sri Lanka committed, and I mean, I've talked about it several times, but we're actually going to go really, really deep into this. And it is buckle up because, and we're going to be watching that movie, the Sri Lanka's Killing Fields. We'll be watching that, uh, the the documentary, and we'll be watching basically media related remotely to this. We'll be watching some movies made in Tamil Nadu about the Sri Lankan army and like about what happened in Sri Lanka as well. We'll be watching those as well, and we'll just be covering basically the part of Sri Lankan history that no one is talking about. Like you go to Al Jazeera, they're not talking about this. You go to CNN, no one's talking about this. No one's talking about the war crimes that both the Rajapaksas have committed. No one is talking about it.
Yeah, I remember like before now, one of the last times I can ever remember hearing about Sri Lanka in US news was back in 2009 when it was announced the Sri Lankan civil war is finally over, with the Sri Lankan government announcing the defeat of the Tamil Tigers, and I don't remember them really going much into the actual like depth of it.
Yeah. Right. My mind also went blank for a second. I was like, what the hell? What the hell am I going to talk about? But yeah, I don't want to keep you like, I don't want to dwell on this for too long. I know you want to play some AFL, some Australian rules football.
Yeah. I mean, I'm down to keep talking for a little bit. Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the thing right now. Yeah, like I'm also like beginning to like blank out on like what else. Like I think we've basically run the gamut of like a lot of what's been going on in Sri Lanka.
Yeah, not much more to say about it, really.
I mean, there's not much more I can say about it, but I can show it to you. Like if you watch the movie, you can get a better idea for yourself. Like disassociation. No, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is more um like I'm trying to come up with something more to say about this, but I don't think there's much more that I can describe to you. I think there's a point where you have to just watch it for yourself. And that's what I intend to demonstrate tomorrow, right? And the stuff that you guys will see is like going to be harrowing. It's going to be heartbreaking. But the thing that I hope to instill is some frustration and anger, because no one has come to help. No one has come, and no one will. And so we got to keep this. We got to keep that painful memory alive, because we we can't let Sri Lanka devolve like this again. We can't let this happen. It's
Yeah.
already happened. It's already been happening for decades now, for roughly 60, 70, 80 years now. We can't let this go on for any longer. We got to do whatever we can to stop this.
Yeah, especially in the current context of things with how Sri Lanka is in such a precarious political situation because of this like extreme fucking economic crisis that the Rajapaksa family drove them headfirst into.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's about it for my end. I'm gonna leave you to it, but
Yeah, sure
thanks for
thing. Thanks a lot for calling in and talking. That was definitely a really good call.
please do take care and be kind to yourself tonight after this. I wish I could, but there's some preparation I got to do. And that does involve watching some of the really fucked up shit. So, you know, I'm going to rest well as much as I can tonight, but, like, there's really, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I'll do whatever I can, but I gotta do what I gotta do. Rest up, comrade.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, do what you gotta do, but definitely make sure you can get the rest that you need.
Yeah.
Yep. Have yourself a good night, Arun. At least
Thank
try
you.
to, anyway.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep, of course. Great talking.
See you.
Okay. Yeah, that was a great talk about a really, really fucking horrid subject, but a really fucking wonderful talk. Yeah, I'm really glad Arun happened to cross my chat one day. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked this video, hit that like button and hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so that you get notifications for my future uploads. And feel free to leave a comment down below and tell me what you thought about this upload. If you are so inclined to support the channel, there's also a link to my Patreon in the description down below. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you next time.
Fuck. I can't speak right now. God damn it. Fuck.